this whole economy based around cannabis is taking on a head of steam, and nobody can represent that evolution more succinctly than my good friend Duma Winshu, who also happens to be the CEO and founder of Province Brands. Duma, welcome back.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Duma, you are making incredible strides with Province Brands. You've got a prototype packaged beer here, and right that there looks like a beer.
Is that the right spot right there?
That's the right spot. And so it's obvious you're making great progress. You've closed financing. You've got a go public strategy that's
correct.
Unfolding.
Yeah, we just announced that we closed our Series A round. We raised 10.9 million Canadian dollars. Now the total that we've raised since starting the company is around 16 million Canadian dollars. We have announced that we will be taking the company public, ideally before the end of the year. And we are planning our Series B, which will be our go public round, which I mentioned actually before on your show, will be underwritten by Paradigm, as well as a few other banks that will be joining the group that will be raising the capital. So
Great.
It's coming together. We look to be raising about $30 million concurrent with our public listing.
Wow. Okay, so is that enough to build a brewery?
It'll get us started. Let's put it that way. We can get a small brewery, and we can increase capacity. And when we're up and running at full capacity, we'll be 175,000 hectoliters, which is roughly 60 million bottles of cannabis beer per year. And we will be able to scale up from that given success. But we'll be the largest cannabis brewery in the world, and we'll be also a contract facility. We've been getting, as you might imagine, this week after the big announcements that have happened, we've had a lot of interest from licensed producers who may have a marijuana license but they can't brew a beer, and also brewers who may have a brewery but they don't have a marijuana license. Because we have both of those things, we can do contract brewing for LPs and for breweries.
You mean I could get you to produce a Midas letter beer?
Well, I've already been working on one.
Really?
In secret, yes.
Okay, well.
You're going to love it. You just ruined the surprise.
Oh, no. Jesus.
You knew.
Well, I know. I'm sorry about that. I've just ruined my own surprise.
It's going to be for your next anniversary.
Excellent. Okay, so every time we meet, there are evolutions and slight tweaks and changes to the landscape regulatory side in Canada for what is allowed and what isn't. And I know for a fact that at this point, we're still not clear on alcoholic beverages with cannabis components or any beverages with active cannabis ingredients yet, but the language keeps changing in that story.
Well, I think one thing that is clear is that they are not going to allow mixing alcohol and cannabis, which I think is a great thing.
Well, we'll have to do that ourselves.
Yes, you can do that at the bar on your own, but or at your home, I guess, on your own, because it doesn't seem like they'll allow social consumption of cannabis right off the bat either. Right. The products that we brew at Province are non-alcoholic and intoxicate using marijuana or its phytocannabinoids. They're different from an infused beer because they're actually brewed from the cannabis plant itself. We use the stalks, stems, roots of the cannabis plant as the starting material in place of barley from which we will brew our beer. So it is a really unique, authentic product. There's nothing like it on the market. It is super cool. But in terms of regulations, what we do know for sure is that come October of 2019, if not before, marijuana beverages will be on the shelf here in Canada. And if there was ever any doubt of that, the large investment by Constellation into cannabis growth is sort of indicating that certainly there is a lot of interest and a lot of energy going into producing cannabis beverages and a lot of money to lobby the government to make sure that they follow through on their promise.
You bet, you bet. Interesting. So then, what?
So is this a beer? Is it a type of beer?
It's a type of beer brewed from the cannabis plant instead of barley. So the ingredients are basically cannabis, hops, water, and brewer's yeast.
Any nutritional value there?
It will have some protein, just like a barley beer does, but just a little.
Okay.
What's important about it is gluten-free. It is much lower calorie than a typical beer, lower carb, lower sugar, and it's a great story.
We were just talking about hemp being a superfood. Now you got a super drink.
A superfood, super drink.
And after some alcohol and cannabis, you'll feel like Superman.
We'll try to avoid that.
That's right.
Whoa.
So I'm thinking about the the nature of cannabis plants, and I understand that hemp is in fact a related to the hops plant, but I can't for the life of me imagine how you would deal with the flavor characteristics of a cannabis plant in the same context as you would barley in a beer.
Well, if you think about it, the flavor of beer comes from a lot of things. It
Right.
comes from the yeast you use, it comes from the process and the amount that you ferment it, whether you caramelize the sugars, whether you roast the malt. There's so many things that comprise the flavor of a beer. The actual barley is a very small percentage. I mean, the biggest component in the flavor of the beer is the hops, or it can be, depending on how much hops you use. Now, we use hops. We use, brewer's yeast, just like everyone else. But instead of that barley, we're using cannabis, and it has a very nice, robust, nutty, savory flavor. If you think of a wine, the white wines, there's sweet wines and dry white wines. We are basically a dry beer. It's lower sugar, it's lower calorie, it has this sort of savory aspect to it that's different.
How many calories, for instance?
Well, we've been saying 60, but our last test came back at around 40, and we're going to continue to develop it up until October of 2019 to get the lowest calories possible in a natural way. We're not using any NutraSweet or Splenda or anything in place of sugar. It is actually.
I'm going to try it for sure.
Oh, we'd love for you to try it.
Yes, well, I've tried
several.
tried it.
Does this have cannabis in it?
This is a mock-up that you're looking at.
Okay, I'm just going to say cannabis.
Yeah, take it.
A mock-up, Ed. That means it's soda water.
That's right.
Hey, so that's great. So,
Yeah.
so you're continuing to develop the product
Yes.
in full confidence that you're going to be able to sell it on the shelves in Canada very soon.
We know for sure we'll be able to sell
Right.
it on the shelves in Canada. And if that's not enough, we've applied now for a license in Greece, and we are looking to sell it in Europe in medical marijuana markets, which also allow beverages. And we may be able to export it from Canada to certain medical markets already. So we may be able to even do that before legalization.
So how does the existence of an entity like Molson Coors in the space, how do you feel about that?
Oh, we think it's fantastic. I mean, no one ever thought there was going to be one type of cannabis beer, just like there's not one type of alcohol beer. There are different beers for different occasions, for different people, for different types of things. We think what we do is very unique and very different from what Molson may do, or what Canopy and Constellation may do, or what Hill Street may do, or any of the other beverage companies that have announced plans to launch a beer in Canada. Those guys are taking a non-alcoholic beer that's made from barley, and they're infusing a marijuana oil, which, hey, they're welcome to do that. But should they wish to actually brew from the cannabis plant, whether it's hemp or marijuana, they would likely need to license our patent-pending technology. And the technology has a lot of benefits, not the least of which is it's a great story. It's truly authentic. And when you think about the cannabis consumer, one thing they have in common with the craft beer consumer is this love of authenticity. Cannabis, by its nature, was a small batch craft industry for so many years. And what we're doing is making something that stays true to those very authentic roots of the cannabis plant. We think of it like the difference between a single malt scotch and a blended whiskey, right? They're both going to get you drunk, sure, but do a chemical analysis on them, they're basically the same thing. So why is it that people are willing to pay so much more for that single malt scotch than they are for that blended whiskey? It's like it's about the process that they use, the quality of the ingredients, all of these different aspects of what people are paying for. And
Ed can give you another reason why people are happy to pay a premium for blended scotch, or for a premium single malt over a blended
what's
whiskey.
the other reason?
Well, I would say it's have something to do with their ego, right?
I was going to say bragging rights.
Bragging
I thought
rights.
I was trying to transmit that to you telepathically, Ed. I thought it was coming through. We've been having such a great, and then is it because it's almost quit?
I thought you wanted to say ego. I read it wrong. Sorry.
Well, bragging rights, ego,
Yeah.
same
Very
kind of
similar,
you know what?
same idea.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult to discern flavor by itself.
Right.
Like, because if you only have one thing, I mean, that's what it is. But you usually need to compare, like even viewing or audio or anything. You have to compare it to really say which one's better, right?
I suppose.
If you only get one stock to buy, how do you know if it's a good one?
How do you create excitement? How do you bash another guy's stock
That's right.
while pumping your own?
We think what we're making is the sort of the single malt scotch equivalent, and the infused beers will be sort of a blended whiskey equivalent. So it's very exciting to see what's going to happen in this industry.
So when will we be able to try an actual cannabis beer from your brewery?
Well, the marijuana beers will be available when marijuana beverages are allowed for sale here in Canada.
Okay.
And that looks like it will be around October of 2019.
Okay. And what about the actual beer brewed from cannabis?
Well, we are playing around with ideas, maybe announcing pretty soon that we might launch a beer made from hemp that would have alcohol in it. But the marijuana, when I said marijuana beers before, the beers brewed from marijuana will be available October of 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Whenever anyone else is allowed to.
Well, that's a long time to wait
beverages.
for a beer, isn't it, Ed?
I can get mighty thirsty.
What time is it now?
Mighty thirsty.
It's beer o'clock.
Beer o'clock. I love it.
Hey, Duma. Well, as usual, it's fantastic to hear about the evolution of this story.
Yep.
It's innovation at its finest, and we congratulate you for the progress that you've
Thank
made.
you.
And we're also very excited about having you back again soon for another update. So thanks for
There are going
joining
to be
us
many
today.
more. Thanks for having me. It's been an honor.